Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. This guy right here is Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. Actually, two reviews in one. For some reason, my Hitomi issue number 2 review got flagged by YouTube. I didn't even notice until a couple days ago. This is weeks ago that I dropped the review. I thought it was kind of fishy because I wasn't getting any comments, but sometimes that happens on my videos. And I'm not one of those people that watch my subs and views. I do look at the comments though, and I love that. But for some reason it got flagged. It said it was a music copyright issue, and I don't do music. I'm thinking maybe they picked something in the audio or something like that. So here we are, and I'm gonna do issues 2 and 3 back to back to catch you up on this fantastic series. At least that's my opinion. So before we get into it, Hitomi is written and created by my dude. I love this guy, HS Talk. We got art by Isabella Mazzanti. Then we got color by Valentina Napolitano and letters by Rob Jones. The issue 2 is done by Valentina Napolitano. I think so because it's cover A, and I think this was cover A. I'm kind of guaranteed. Now this one I did pick up the Spawn variant, which is the folded out for you. But this is Rachel Wood that did this cover here. If you're interested. Both comics, it's still the same art, writer, lettering, that kind of junk. So Hitomi issue number 2, I'm kind of going to speed through it. But where we left off, she, Hitomi was being chased by a samurai. She had fell into some icy water. She was saved by Yusaki, which is supposed to be the samurai that she has, kind of cast revenge on because supposedly he killed her family. He does not know this. He doesn't recognize her, that kind of thing. That's not it. Honestly, that's one of my weird parts of the book, but I'll get there at the end. At this point, with Yusaki and I might be mispronouncing his name. I'm really bad with names, so no form of disrespect. But that's what I'm going to go with. Yusaki is with this little group, and the other parts of the group are kind of weirded out, like she's some kind of demon or some kind of, spirit or something like that. Yusaki he's seen past it, and he knows that, she's a little girl, it's cold, she can't be in the wild, so he kind of, takes her with him. He goes back to the camp, and we saw this before, that Yusaki spends his time sumo wrestling against Buntaro, which is this guy right here. Yusaki constantly loses. I don't think he's ever won a match, but he still attempts it all the time. Hitomi, she questions this. Why do you fight him if you never win? And basically he answers with a basic answer: I need money. It's kind of where this story finally gets going, because while they're sitting there talking about his failed money endeavors, they are greeted by this villager, and basically told that outside the village that their little village is being terrorized by a wolf, that there's a sheep herder, and that the sheep herder's losing all his sheep. It only comes out at certain times, and yada yada yada. And so they do hire Yusaki and Hitomi. Hitomi goes with him because at this point she's established. She's constantly will you train me? Will you train me? She knows that he is a samurai. She doesn't understand where his swords are, but she still wants to be trained by him. But it kind of goes back into the whole master plot of the book, right? So she kind of mentions that she could kill Wolf in her sleep. He thinks she's boasting, kind of thing, but they still take the mission. He kind of lays out the plan, and basically he's going to oh wait, I'm jumping ahead of myself, I'm sorry. They do set up what is going to be gained from the villagers and stuff, and it's basically a sword, and it comes both ways. That Hitomi's offering, if Yusaki trains her, she will give him her sword, and then from the villagers, it is promised like a buttload of copper and another sword from the village. So, okay, now we reverse. Okay, back to the plan. So the plan is to dress her up in sheep's clothing. They actually have some like already deceased sheep. They don't necessarily kill one, but they do dress her up as a sheep to lure out the wolf. At this time, it kind of comes up with a whole lot of questions like, you're old and slow, how are you going to be able to reach me in time if the wolf comes? And he kind of explains like, you can't be a samurai if you have that much fear in you, kind of thing. With this being said, they shoot to the nighttime, and sure enough, she's out there in the middle of, a field, making the noise, and sure enough, a wolf shows up. The wolf does like run at her and tries to get, but as soon as it gets close, we see right here that it is not a wolf, it is a man that has been killing the sheep. And as soon as he gets close enough to Hitomi and she kind of like reveals that she is a girl, the wolf kind of backs off and stuff. Before he is able to do so, Yusaki shows up with a bolo, and he kind of like throws a rock at the guy, which you can see right here. He does get hit. He makes like a sound. She even makes a joke like, "What were you aiming at? You didn't even hit him." And he was like, "Yeah, he made a squeal," and she's all like, "Nah." That was more like, a victory yell or something like that, Basically, they go back in town to tell the villagers that it's not a wolf, that it's a man, and basically they're looking for someone in their village with a large lump on their head because they got hit with a massive rock. They are given the copper and the sword. This sword basically goes to Hitomi, and they cut the share of the copper. They go to have a nice meal and a drink, and as they do to celebrate, they are greeted by these three nasty looking individuals that kind of call out Yusaki, claiming that he's a ronin, he doesn't have his swords, that kind of thing. So they kind of lay into him, and there's they kind of they do the obvious, they go after his skin color and stuff. But basically, Yusaki, being the dope master that he is, he actually uses this as a teaching situation. Hitomi thinks that he is going to fight and best these other samurai, and lo and behold, he just walks away. Saying that basically some fights are better not, fought. And I mean, if there's no reason, there's no, what's the honor in fighting over something that has no ploy or plot to you, kind of thing. They do kind of go back, and that's it. We're leading to the next book, and there's some more of this conversation about honor and stuff like that with Hitomi and Yusaki. But basically, she just wants to train. She wants him to train him, and she doesn't really care about anything else except to be his equal at some point. After this, we do see that she does start her training past that first lesson, and they kind of, jump through different things, and this is where the book leaves us off, and incidentally, that's where the second issue picks off from. As they are continuing on their journey, like I showed you in that last image, they come across another villager, and actually this time it gets super dope. I love these kind of like a traveling ronin. One of my favorite tales is Rurouni Kenshin, and that's kind of all I used to do, was travel from town to town and pick up random jobs or help out random strangers, kind of thing. But that's exactly what is being done here. The villager comes and tells a story about that they are being plagued by a killer. The killer does not go after women, it only goes after men. And that's kind of the plight. As they're being told the story back at the village, Hitomi notices this girl with a massive scar on her face. It comes into play later on. Just remember the scar with her face. So they do accept the job, and basically at this time, there's like two things that happens. Yusaki kind of warns that he is traveling with a woman, so why would the killer come after them if, he doesn't attack women, kind of thing. they do accept the job, and that's where they come up with the plan. Just like the first one, they're going to dress her up in a sheep. No, they're gonna make her look like a boy. They tack down her chest and cut her hair. There is a conversation about when a samurai cuts their hair. It is supposed to be a definite sign of change. It's not necessarily bad or good. It's just a definite sign of change. And here we are. They are set up in the field. Basically, you know, well, I think they walk a path, and they walk a path to a field. As they are walking the path, some of the lessons learning start happening because Yusaki already knows that they are being followed. They end up making it to this like field, and that he tells Hitomi, you know, for them to sit and, you know, back to back. And at this time, they're kind of just waiting, trying to figure out if the people that were following were the killers or if they're something else entirely. But basically, Yusaki's like, this is the best bet. We're back to back. If they do try anything, you know, bam, we got it. As they are sitting there back to back, they do hear a scream, a dude scream. And Hitomi is like, somebody has trouble, and she takes off. As soon as she takes off, she is snared in a trap, and she swings upward. As soon as she is taking upward and Yusaki comes to save her, we are greeted by our killer, which quickly turns out to be killers. And you see right here that the killer walks up to Yusaki, and while him being dazed, she kind of blows some sleeping powder in his face. They walk over to Hitomi, and basically do the same thing. You know, they walk over to Hitomi, and this one is not a poison thing. It's like she puts her finger in her mouth, and that was enough to do it. You know, she had enough of the sleeping powder on her finger. They wake up in a cave. Basically, Yusaki tells them that they need to get the hell out of there. And, you know, I mean, of course. You know, that he has basically at this point, he's been up for a little bit. Hitomi's finally waking up. They're like, look, the killers aren't here right now. We need to move right now. We are in like the worst situation ever. And they basically start rocking back and forth. As they do this, the killers enter the cave, and they basically come and greet Hitomi and Yusaki. As they do, most of this time there's no verbal conversation that comes from the two killers. It's kind of grunts and stuff like that, and most of the conversation is between like Yusaki and Hitomi versus the two killers. The two killers finally do kind of talk and explain why they're doing it, and as you can see, she is like badly scarred, just like the other woman in the village, and of course that's what's happening. We have two women that were, you know, maybe brutalized by some men in the village, elders, something like that. Maybe it was covered up, and they had enough at this point. And they don't even state whether it's the village that they're helping out. It could be like some other village that they're from. At this point, they're just taking it out on men. They just ambushed this certain spot during a main trail, and at this point, any man that passes that point, that they kill. That's kind of why the village got involved, because it was a trade route or something like that, and they couldn't get guys through. But basically at this point, it's kind of a struggle because they want to kill Yusaki. He's a guy, you know. I mean, that's pretty much all it needs to be, you know, baby. But at this point, it's Hitomi that saves the day. She starts speaking up, and, you know, basically like, hey, if you kill him, you know, I'll never be a samurai. I'm supposed to be the samurai. You know, you want, you know, badass women, you know, in the world, that kind of thing. If you kill him, then I won't be able to complete my training, and that's kind of all that's really said. And basically, they go over like they're going to kill them, and they just cut the ropes, and they do let them leave. Like I said, there's not a lot of conversation that goes with the two killers, but I will say one thing, and it's the one thing that is said back to them. During the time when she was explaining that Yasaki and her were student and master, she used the term like panther and hawk, like they were a panther and hawk learning to train together to hunt, and and because she is on this hunt mission to find the killer that killed her family, which all the way back at the beginning, remember, it's supposed to be Yusaki is the one that killed her family. At this point, something, I mean, it's kind of obvious, and Hitomi did not see it coming. But the killers do release him, and as soon as they do, and they say that little tagline, well, y'all go hunt, Panther and Hawk, and we'll leave y'all be, kind of thing. As soon as that happens, Yusaki grabs his sword, pulls it on him, and after that, it's done. I mean, Yusaki is a great samurai. These two women were not samurai. They were just people, wielding swords and knives, that kind of thing, and he goes to town and beheads both of them. Hitomi is kind of, weirded out and everything, and she is brought back to that moment when she found her parents dead, and she's like, why did you do that? They let us live and stuff like that, and he gives them the obvious two reasons. One, we took a job to do, what we were supposed to do, and on top of that, that is samurai honor. He was like, you talk about honor and this and that. He was like, no, this is samurai honor. We took a job regardless of what happens, and no, we still got to do the job. And he was like, two, I mean, these people were killers. They weren't just like friendly, regular people. He was like, remember those guys in the bar that I just walked past? These weren't those guys. These were killers. And it basically the summation of what happens. He leaves her katana on the ground because I think it was hers, and tells her to grab it. She ends up grabbing it. After that, they do go back to the village. They do give back the mask to prove that the killers were dead, and they got the explanation. They collected their fee. As they're walking out, Hitomi is like, this is honor? And he's all like, yeah, this is honor. He says, this is work. Work is honor. But you have a sword now. And like, she kind of hears that and takes off back towards the village. We see her take off because of the girl with the scar. And as she takes off, she finds the dude that was gallantly said he like had something to do with the girl in the scar because she was a servant. And Hitomi kills this dude. I mean, the guy throws up his arms, to defend himself, and Hitomi's like, I'm like, right there. And just, after that, they go back to, Hitomi finds Yusaki, and Yusaki's like, okay, did you clean the blade? And she's like, yeah. And basically, he gives her a new name, and it's Wolfslayer. He kind of mentions it in the beginning of the second issue that most samurai, after they cut their hair, they do receive a new name. And after the first two basically challenges that they went up against, she had earned the title Wolfslayer. They go back into town to celebrate, have a meal, and just like last issue, this meal's interrupted by this time by a soldier. A soldier comes in and he's talking about that the let's see what he says. I'm trying to remember who it was, an admiral, but he basically says, "Forgive this intrusion, but I must announce that war is imminent." And he sees Hitomi and Yusaki, and he's basically like, "Oh, you look like a full-bodied man. We're gonna need your help." And before this guy can even try and recruit him, Yusaki and Hitomi are like, nope, they stand up and they get to move him. No, we're just, visiting. We have someplace else to go. And they leave the restaurant. As soon as they leave the restaurant, they, like, I mean, right there's a man, like a recruiter for this army. And basically he's like, hey, how you doing? I'm so glad you're the first to come out here and join the army. And Yusaki's like, no, that's not what's going down. And they're basically like, yeah, thanks for joining the army, get in the ranks. And that's kind of where the book leaves us off, is these two horse guys telling Yusaki, yep, you're gonna be in the war, let's go, you know. And that's what we get. But we do get a visual of the next cover, and it does look fantastic from what I can see. And I'll read you the little like preview. It says, the time of war has come to the land. Hitomi spurs Yusaki's warnings and joins a military campaign, hoping to make a name for herself. To Yusaki's dismay, she does. I don't know about you, I'm all in on Hitomi, man. This book is fantastic. I can't say that it's family friendly anymore. It's getting quite on the bloody side, but it is a story about samurais, you know what I'm saying? I'm totally loving the story. I mean, I do have big questions, but they're not bad questions. Like, and I kind of have answers to one of the questions already. I have a guess on what's to come. But let me hear your thoughts on this book. What are you thinking about Hitomi? Are you loving this series? Have you picked it up? Did you pass it up? Why did you pass it up? This book is fantastic. It gets a high recommendation from me. The art, the story, the layout, everything, the progression. I am enjoying it so much. But that is my review. I'm sorry it's a little long. This was a twofer. I hope you enjoy. I hope you are getting ready for New Comic Book Day, which is tomorrow. I will see y'all later, guys.